Imagine you're grilling in your backyard on a quiet evening in Florida. Suddenly, your dog freezes and starts barking furiously toward a nearby pond. You look in the direction it's barking, but at first, you see nothing except the still, dark surface of the water. Then, from beneath the water, two cold eyes slowly rise into view. Just a few yards from your fence is a massive American alligator. It doesn't roar, chase anyone, or make a sound. But that silence is exactly what makes it so terrifying. In the United States, there is a group of people who are called in during moments like these. They are not police officers, nor are they alligator hunters from action movies. They are alligator trappers. Specialists who deal with dangerous alligators that appear near people. Their phone can ring in the middle of the night, during a storm, or the moment someone discovers an alligator in a swimming pool. And the most surprising part is this: the job is not necessarily as highly paid as many people assume. Many of them earn money not only from the service call itself, but also from the alligator they capture. So in the end, are alligator trappers heroes protecting local communities, or are they simply cleaning up the consequences of humans expanding into wild habitats? Today, we are stepping into one of the strangest, most dangerous, and most controversial jobs in Florida. An alligator trapper is not someone who catches alligators for entertainment. These are the people called in when an alligator becomes a genuine threat. In Florida, alligators can appear surprisingly close to human communities. They can be found behind homes, in retention ponds, on golf courses, near schools, and even inside swimming pools. When residents spot an alligator showing potentially dangerous behavior, they are not supposed to handle the situation themselves. Instead, they contact wildlife authorities or a dedicated nuisance alligator hotline. After that, an alligator trapper is dispatched to the scene. Their job is to assess the situation, protect public safety, and deal with the animal according to established regulations. It may sound like an action-packed profession, but in reality, it requires a great deal of experience and composure. One wrong decision can put residents, pets, the trapper, or even the alligator itself in danger. What makes this profession unique is that many alligator trappers are not full-time government employees. They are often licensed contractors who respond to calls whenever incidents occur. As a result, the profession exists at the intersection of public safety, private business, and the natural world. And the more you learn about it, the more you realize that this job is far more complex than the alligator catcher image often seen on television. The reason American alligators appear near people is not because they are intentionally invading residential neighborhoods. In reality, many communities in Florida are built right next to lakes, canals, marshes, and wetlands. For people, these locations offer beautiful views, fresh air, and valuable real estate. But for alligators, they are still part of their natural habitat. Alligators live in freshwater environments, hunt along shorelines, and often remain motionless to conserve energy. The problem begins when humans and alligators end up sharing the same space. A pond behind a home may be a place where children play and pets roam freely, but it can also be a hunting ground for an alligator. Even more concerning, some people feed alligators out of curiosity or to record videos. Once an alligator loses its natural fear of humans, it becomes more likely to approach residential areas. At that point, a wild animal is no longer just an interesting sight. It becomes a genuine safety risk. The frightening part is that an alligator does not need to attack loudly or dramatically. It only needs to float silently on the water's surface, waiting for someone to come too close to the edge. That is why the boundary between a peaceful neighborhood and the wild can sometimes be separated by only a few yards of water. A call for an alligator trapper usually begins with a moment of panic from local residents. It could be an alligator lying beside a swimming pool, crawling onto a golf course, or appearing right behind someone's backyard fence. Residents contact the hotline or wildlife authorities to report the situation. If the alligator is determined to pose a potential danger, a trapper is dispatched to the scene. When they arrive, the first thing they do is not rush in and capture the animal. They observe the area, estimate the animal's size, identify its location, and assess its distance from nearby people. They also instruct residents to keep their distance, bring pets indoors, and keep the area as quiet as possible. Because in this profession, a crowd of curious onlookers can sometimes be almost as dangerous as the alligator itself. After that, the trapper relies on specialized equipment and knowledge of animal behavior to bring the situation under control. Every step must be deliberate, careful, and in accordance with regulations. One reckless move can panic the animal or put nearby people at risk. Once the alligator has been safely secured, the trapper documents the incident and proceeds according to state regulations. Some calls are resolved within less than an hour. But on other nights, they may spend hours waiting beside dark water, just to see a pair of eyes rise to the surface once again. Many people assume that once an alligator is captured, it is simply transported to a distant swamp and released back into the wild. But the reality is not always that straightforward. For alligators that have been identified as dangerous, relocating them can create an entirely new problem. If an alligator has become accustomed to people, it may continue approaching residential areas in its new location. This is especially true for animals that have been fed by humans, have appeared repeatedly near neighborhoods, or no longer fear people. In those cases, relocation is no longer a completely reliable solution. It can simply mean moving the risk from one community to another. As a result, depending on state regulations, some dangerous alligators may be handled through official wildlife management programs. This is the aspect of the profession that makes the work of an alligator trapper so controversial. For local residents, trappers are the people who protect families, pets, and neighborhoods. But for many animal lovers, the story feels far more complicated. They ask a difficult question: is the alligator really the intruder, or have humans built their homes within the alligator's territory? And that is why this profession is not only physically dangerous. It also places those who do the job in the middle of a difficult choice: human safety, or the life of an ancient predator. When people hear about the job of catching alligators, many assume it must be a highly paid profession. But the reality surprises quite a few people. Alligator trappers do not always receive a steady monthly salary, comprehensive benefits, or a predictable work schedule. In many areas, they operate as licensed contractors who are only called when an incident occurs. The payment for each call is often much lower than people imagine. As a result, a significant portion of their income may sometimes come from the legal processing of alligator hides and meat after a capture. Alligator hides can be sold to licensed tanneries. Alligator meat can be sold to restaurants or approved processing facilities. But that also means their income depends on factors such as the size of the animal, market conditions, seasonal demand, and the number of calls they receive. Some months, the phone rings constantly. Other months, almost nothing happens. And whether the pay is high or low, the risks remain very real. They may have to wake up at 2 in the morning, drive through a storm, arrive at a pitch-black pond, and confront an animal longer than a sofa. So this is not simply a job of catching alligators to get rich. It is a dangerous, unpredictable profession, and one that is only suited for people who truly understand what they are getting into. The risks faced by an alligator trapper are not limited to an alligator's bite. The first danger is the working environment itself. They are often called to scenes at night, when visibility is poor and the water's surface is nearly impossible to see through. One slip along the edge of a pond can turn a routine situation into an emergency. On top of that, there is mud, tall grass, heavy rain, lightning, and areas with little or no protective barriers. But sometimes, the hardest thing to control is not the alligator. It is the people. Curious neighbors gather to watch, someone pulls out a phone to record a video, children stand too close, or a worried homeowner refuses to step back. Meanwhile, an alligator is an animal that can remain motionless for a long time before exploding into action in an instant. It does not need to growl to give a warning. It does not need to move much to become dangerous. A single mistake in judging the animal's distance, size, or escape route can cause the situation to spiral out of control. That is why this profession is not for people who want to show off. It is for people who are calm enough to be afraid at the right moment, step back at the right moment, and act at the right moment. If there is one place in the United States where the job of an alligator trapper has become especially well known, it is definitely Florida. The state has a hot, humid climate, with countless lakes, canals, swamps, and wetlands. In other words, it is almost a natural paradise for American alligators. But Florida is also a place where humans have built many residential communities along lakes, golf courses, resorts, and retirement neighborhoods. This creates an almost unavoidable collision. On one side are people who want beautiful homes, blue lakes, green lawns, and peaceful living. On the other side is an ancient predator that has existed in these environments for a very long time. Alligators do not understand property lines, fences, or warning signs. To them, a backyard pond is still just a pond. A man-made canal can still be a travel route. And a quiet golf course can still resemble a feeding ground. Because of this, in Florida, alligators do not only appear in remote swamps. They can show up in the middle of everyday human life. This constant overlap has created a demand for people who specialize in handling dangerous alligator encounters. And that is why the alligator trapper has become a strange but almost essential profession in Florida. Not everyone who likes alligators can become an alligator trapper. This is not a job for people who watch a few online videos and want to try a thrill-seeking experience. In states like Florida, people working in this field are usually required to be approved or licensed by wildlife management authorities. They must often live near their assigned area, because calls can come at any time. A trapper may be called out at night, on weekends, on holidays, or during severe weather conditions. Beyond good physical condition, they must understand alligator behavior. They need to know when the animal is being defensive, when it is trying to escape, and when a situation is about to become dangerous. But animal handling skills are only one part of the job. They must also know how to work with people. At the scene, there are often panicked homeowners, curious neighbors, children, pets, and many phones recording everything. A good alligator trapper must keep a calm mind in every situation. They need to follow regulations, document each incident, and handle the animal according to legal procedures. Even a small mistake can lead to serious consequences. That is why this profession is not for reckless people. It is for those with enough experience, discipline, and calmness to face the wild right in the middle of residential neighborhoods. But behind the profession of an alligator trapper, there is also a difficult ethical question that does not have an easy answer. Are they heroes protecting residential communities, or legally sanctioned hunters of predators? For a family with young children, pets, and a pond behind their home, the answer can feel very simple. If an alligator appears too close, they want someone to deal with it immediately. In their eyes, the trapper is the person who provides safety. The one standing between their family and a dangerous predator. But for those who love animals, the situation is not so straightforward. Alligators do not know where a backyard ends, where a golf course begins, or what a resort boundary is. They are simply living in an environment their species has existed in for a very long time. So when humans build homes beside lakes, dig canals, and develop resorts, then label alligators as a threat, who is truly the intruder? This is why the profession is controversial. It is not just about whether to capture or not capture an alligator. It is about how humans choose to live alongside the wild. And sometimes, an alligator trapper is not standing between humans and alligators. They are standing between human fear and the consequences of human expansion into nature. An alligator trapper is not just someone who catches alligators. It is a job that stands between two worlds that seem impossible to reconcile. On one side is humanity, with its houses, gardens, pets, children, and the desire to live in safety. On the other side is the American alligator, an ancient predator that has existed on this land long before residential neighborhoods were ever built. Every call is not just a wildlife removal incident. It is also a reminder that nature does not disappear simply because humans build more fences. And sometimes, what is most frightening is not the alligator lying still beneath the water. It is the fact that we forget we are living right next to the wild. For residents of Florida, an alligator trapper may be a hero who arrives at just the right moment. For the alligator, they may represent the end of an encounter it never chose. And for us, this profession is a strange but very real story about the United States. A place where just beyond the backyard fence, modern life can suddenly meet an ancient predator. If one day you opened your back door and saw a pair of eyes rising from the water, what would you do? Leave your answer in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel to discover more unusual jobs in the US that you might never believe actually exist.